Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our town hall for charitable organizations. Today's topic is how to come back into compliance, fixing registration issues. Thrilled everybody's joining us this morning. My name is Michael Schlein, Division Administrator for the Charities and Legal Services Division at the Secretary of State's office. With me today, we have a couple of our charity officers. We'll be monitoring the chat box and helping out with question and answer at the end. Just a few matters of housekeeping first, as indicated in the email notification about today's town hall. This town hall will be recorded. A link to the recording will be made available on the Secretary of State's website under the Charities tab. By choosing to join the town hall, you are consenting to the recording as a part of this town hall. The recording and presentation provided is for informational purposes only. The recording and presentation are not intended to be legal advice. We'll have some time at the end to field questions that you may have. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat box. One of our charity officers will give it an answer or may decide to hold off and read it at the end for everybody. And whatever happens, if you ask a question in the chat box, let our charity officers answer that. I appreciate everybody's good nature in trying to help, but let our charity officers, or maybe at the end myself, answer that to avoid the source of or potential confusion over any answers that may be given. You are welcome to place those questions in the chat box at any time. We'll do our best to answer all of them, and of course, we'll hold some time, like I said, at the end for a question and answer. So, without further ado, let's get started. And so, just a little bit of housekeeping and background about this. The Solicitations Act is the law that governs charitable solicitation and charitable solicitation registration in the state of Maryland. And it's found in the Annotated Code of Maryland Business Regulation Article Title 6. The Code of Maryland Regulations is where you find regulations drawn from the Solicitations Act or for the Solicitations Act. That's in the Code of Maryland Regulations, Title 1, Subtitle 2, Chapter 4. So just a few other basic points. If anybody's been on some of our other town halls this year, you may notice these next couple slides. And just by way of background, does my organization have to register, and if so, when? We get questions about this on the regular, and here's really where or how you decide, do I need to register with the Secretary of State's office? A charitable organization shall register and receive a registration letter from the Secretary of State before the organization does one of the following three things: solicits charitable contributions in Maryland, has charitable contributions solicited on its behalf in Maryland, or solicits charitable contributions outside of Maryland if the charitable organization is located in Maryland. So any one of those reasons would cause you to register. Usually if the charity is based in Maryland and it solicits at all, it needs to register. If the charity is based outside of Maryland but solicits Marylanders, it would need to register. And point and note there in the italics and in bold, if your organization is located in Maryland and has a donate button on its website, or asks for donations on other social media, any social media, that is considered soliciting charitable contributions in Maryland. You're based in Maryland and you're soliciting, even if it's just online, that's still solicitation. So what's a charitable contribution? We talk about soliciting charitable contributions. It's a contribution made on a representation that'll be used for a charitable purpose. Charitable contributions could include payment, transfer, enforceable pledge of financial help, including money, credit, property, or services. So that's money and stuff, right? Property or services. You usually see cash or a credit card or some type of monetary donation, or you see sometimes donations of gifts in kind or stuff. Maybe choose clothing or toys or something like that. That's all a charitable contribution. Charitable contributions do not include an unsolicited gift, a government grant or government money, membership assessments, dues, or fines, payments for property sold or services rendered, unless it's done in conjunction with connection with a charitable solicitation. Public safety contribution as it's defined in the Solicitations Act. In other words, your local fire department, fraternal police, things like that, are public safety organizations, and giving to them for those purposes are public safety contributions, or an authorization for discount on the use of services and materials or equipment, including those relating to advertising and broadcast airtime. The big thing that a lot of organizations may get, not all, but a lot get, I just want to highlight, is the government money. Government money is not a contribution. It does not count towards the registration requirements and the thresholds for what you need to do at what time under the Act. Government money is not a contribution. What's a charitable solicitation? So if you're getting contributions from these types of acts, this is a solicitation, right? So a solicitation is an oral or written request for a charitable contribution, regardless of whether the person who makes the request receives the contribution. So key phrase in there, right? I ask for money in some way, shape, or form. Even if you don't give that money, I've still solicited. That's a charitable solicitation. That would require registration. Charitable solicitation includes a lot of stuff. You look at this slide here, there's a lot of wording. As I mentioned, this is being recorded. It'll be posted online, and all this is also pulled right out of the law as well. Fundraising, drive, event, campaign, or other activity, announcement to the media seeking contributions, written advertisements or publications that directly or implicitly seek contributions, and the sale of or offer to or attempt to sell admissions, advertisements, chance, device, membership, listing, subscription, ticket, any of those items. There's a lot listed there. So if you're trying to sell any of those items in connection with which you're making an appeal for contributions, the name of the charitable organization is being used expressly or implicitly to induce a purchase, or a statement is made that some or all the proceeds from the sale are to be used for a charitable purpose. So what does this last bullet point and all those sub-bullet points mean? We're talking about fundraising events, right? Raffles, fundraising events. We're in Maryland, so let's say your organization hosts a crab feast and it sells tickets for people to attend this fundraising event. That money, that's a charitable solicitation. The money gained from that counts towards the gross contributions received for the purpose of calculating what a registration fee is, or whether an auditor review is required, and all the other reporting requirements listed in the Act. So that fundraising event revenue counts, and why? Why? Because I'm going to this crab feast because it's supporting a charity, right? I may just buy my own, or I'm going to the Blue Roast because I'm supporting a charity. I may be going, yes, I'm buying a ticket to attend a fundraising event or to participate in a raffle, but I'm doing that because it's going to help this charitable organization. And that's why the income from these fundraising events counts towards thresholds for contributions. If you've ever wondered why we count certain lines on the 990 or 990 EZ or the State Form COF 85, this is why. This definition helps explain as well as what is a contribution or what's not a contribution. Why we ask you to add up the lines we do when you're deciding what you need to file with us. So some pretty common things that that prevent compliance: an incomplete application to register, not paying a registration fee, missing the supporting documentation, outstanding late fees. These are really the big ones that we see on an all too common basis. Application to register. If it's on the form, you need to fill it out. The only exception on a charity form is a fax number. Otherwise, if there's a question, it needs to be answered. You need to make sure you answer it completely. Read the whole question and make sure you provide all the information on the registration form. Folks will oftentimes try to leave an email address or a physical address blank. And even if a lot of times say, well, we don't have a address, right? Somebody's place where you could go knock on a door, not a PO box, is the physical address. And we do need that to complete registration. The other one, like I said, a lot of people like to leave email blank. Just, well, we don't have an organizational email. We don't have an info@abccharity.org or contacting the organization for registration issues. So it may be your personal one, or it may be that, it doesn't really matter, but an email address that we can contact the organization at over registration matters. So making sure you submit a completed form. And also, I know this sounds silly, but make sure you sign the form. It is a very common theme for us at the office, unsigned, whether it's a 990 or 990 EZ or COF 85 or the registration or annual registration form itself. Not paying registration fees. One of the benefits, if you're using the online system, as long as you punch in the numbers correctly from your 990 or 990 EZ, or you answer the questions and the way they're supposed to be answered, it's going to calculate the fee for you, so that you don't pay too much or too little. You pay whatever it is that you actually owe based on what your organization received in the most recently completed fiscal year. So folks that send in paper registrations, sometimes they don't pay a fee at all. Sometimes they just write a check for a very large fee that they may not owe. We don't want that either. We want whatever the registration fee is. We certainly don't want more. We certainly can't take less. The other thing, missing supporting documentation. There's a town hall previously about just initial and annual registration requirements earlier this year. And if folks aren't really sure what the file or how that works, I'd encourage you to watch that town hall. It's about 45, 50 minutes long. And it kind of talks about what's needed and why it's needed, when it's needed. And also talks about online filings as well. So supporting documentation could be a 990, could be an auditor review. I mentioned the signature, making sure it's a signed form. The 990, we get a lot of unsigned 990s. Make sure the 990 or 990 EZ or COF 85 is signed. And if it's a 990 or 990 EZ that was e-filed, you can send us the e-file signature authorization page, and that counts as a signed 990 as well if you include that. So making sure the documentation is there. Is, again, online form prompts you to attach all that you need to attach based on what you're reporting from your 990 and the initial set of questions that are asked up front. Then the form kind of morphs into exactly what you need to file. And so if it's asking you for an auditor review, it's probably because you need an auditor review. And if you're unsure, reach out to us and talk to us. And outstanding late fees as well. Organizations get assessed the late fee if they're 60 days late on their registration. So if you're due May 15th, 60 days after that, there's a late fee of $25 assessed. And that late fee goes up $25 a month on the first day of each month thereafter. So, we want you to file on time. We really do want you to file on time. Late fees aren't fun. They're not fun for anybody. So we want to make sure that it's done in a timely manner. And we're going to talk about how to make sure that happens here as well. So resolving registration issues. What do we do? So a lot of common reasons, again, running through this list: failing to submit initial registration forms or complete forms, failing to submit the attached documentation that goes with an initial registration, like articles of incorporation and or bylaws, IRS tax determination letter, financial form, and audit if one's needed, list of the board of directors, the whole board, not just one individual, but the entire board of directors. And we want your current board, right? We don't need your board from what's on your, if you're filing a 990, the 990 contains a board from the prior fiscal year. that's great. We see that on the form, but what we want is when we say list of board of directors, your current board of directors list at the time of the filing. Registration is incomplete until the charity pays any outstanding fees owed. And oftentimes what happens if an organization is missing a piece of information, we're reaching out to you when we process that, review it, and asking you for whatever it is that is missing. And we're doing that primarily by email, whether that's through the online filing system, sending you an email because we've noticed something is missing, incomplete, or incorrect. Or if we were looking at a paper form, we're going to contact the organization at the email address of record. So you want to make sure we're getting a good email address so we can reach out to you that way. We have done and do phone calls and letters to facilitate compliance, but that's further down the road. If you're getting a phone call or a letter, you're already in late fee land. So make sure you're looking out for emails from the Secretary of State's office to whatever the email address of record is for the organization. So you want to make sure that email address is current, as that's the main mode of contact these days. So what's happening? If you submit an initial registration, you're going to receive a response from us one way or the other, whether it's through the online system because you submitted it online or because we received a paper application, and we're going to reach out to you by email to let you know what's next or what happened. And if the organization's registration is complete, you're going to get something with the next due date on it. And if the registration is incomplete, you're going to get something that tells you in an email what is needed to complete that registration. If you don't get an email from us, reach out to us. Check in. Never assume, right? Everybody knows the saying about what happens when you assume. Never assume. We appreciate the faith that you may have in us for sitting around and waiting, but if it's been a while, check in with us. Make sure we have it. Maybe we emailed you and it got stuck in your spam folder or got blocked for some reason, right? Who knows? If somebody failed to provide an email, then we're going to have to send them a letter asking for their email address. We stick something in the mail. Maybe it got to you, maybe it didn't. Maybe it came to you and somebody didn't recognize what it is. Never assume. That's really the long and the short of the slide. Never assume just because you sent something that we have it and it's done. If it's been a while and you haven't heard from us, check in with us. Be proactive and check. We'd much rather you check and be proactive than have to deal with it later. Or we think we've sent something to you and we have, and you did not see it or receive it. And then, here we are weeks, months later, and we're potentially talking about bigger problems than late fees, right? So check in if you haven't received an answer. So just in general, once you've submitted an initial registration and that registration's complete, there's some other pretty common reasons folks fall out of compliance. And the biggest one is just a failure to submit the annual registration forms in time. If your fiscal year ends, let's say December 30th, for example, let's say it ends here December 30th, 2022, your filing is due to us November 15th of 2023. So if you have a current registration, you automatically get the extension. So you really have 10 and a half months to file after your fiscal year ends if you have a current registration. So a June fiscal year end would file by May 15th of the following year. So that's when the stuff is due. That does not mean you have to wait till that time. If your stuff is done early, submit it early. We love early filings. Early filings are great. A lot of folks file in May and June or November and December. So if your stuff is done before May, you don't have to wait till your deadline to file. You can file early, right? So once your fiscal year ends, anytime between then and the filing deadline, 10 and a half months later, you can get that stuff into us to complete your annual registration. So there's not a need to wait. You can file anytime before then as well. Some folks have told us, I've been in conversation with people like, I was waiting until the deadline. I've had it done since February, and I just thought I had to wait till May 15th. Nope, get it in. If it's done in February and it's due May 15th, send it in February, right? Get it in when it's done. That way you don't forget about it. Because what happens, right? You complete all your information and you set it down and wait, and you forget. Life's busy, things happen, right? We have our jobs, and then we have our life outside of our jobs, and things happen and folks forget. So don't sit around and wait on it. Take care of it. If it's ready to be submitted, submit it. Registration is also incomplete until the charity submits all outstanding documents. So what happens sometimes, folks will, especially in the this is a more common problem in when it was all paper filings, but folks would submit, they'd pay the fee, they'd give us the annual form, they'd give us the board of directors list, but their 990 and audit weren't done because it takes time to do those. But by the time the 990 and audit were due and everything else was due, they'd forget because they sent us the fee and the form and the board list, and they kind of forget about sending us the 990 and the audit or the review, which whatever ones of them were required at that time. So all outstanding documentation, it's not just about paying the fee or dropping the annual updated registration form to us. You want to make sure everything is submitted to us by that deadline. And registration's incomplete again, you mentioned earlier, until all fees are paid. So you have a registration fee due, it has to be paid. Just like receiving all the documents, right? We have to receive all the documents and the annual registration fee to complete annual registration. If there are late fees that are there, even if you get the paperwork to us for the year that's due, if there's still outstanding late fees, the organization's still not in compliance. And if you have outstanding late fees and you're not sure why, same thing, right? Don't assume, just check in with us. Check in with us. Maybe you paid it. Maybe it's an error on our part. That happens, right? We have a system and a process, but behind that system and process are people. And so it's entirely possible that we miscalculated something or we didn't do something right as well. So if you don't think you owe a late fee and we're asking you for a late fee, call and ask, email and ask, and our contact information will be up at the end of this. But reach out to us and be proactive. Especially, every now and then, hey, we're wrong too. So again, people sometimes wrong, they make mistakes. So reach out and ask and be, again, proactive. You're going to hear that throughout. Be proactive, reach out, don't assume. The biggest reason besides incomplete stuff is when we do reach out, we don't get a response. And that could be because we get an email address that nobody's checking, or an address that, maybe it's a PO box or something that was mailed to and nobody's answering, or a phone call that is hard to get a live body at, right? We've all had that experience where we've called a number and you hit a couple buttons and nobody answers, or you can't leave a message, or it's somebody's cell phone and the voicemail box is full or not set up and you can't leave a message. Make sure, as an organization, that stuff is accessible to us, because if something is incomplete, we want to reach out. We want to get your registration complete. We like you to be compliant. We want increased compliance. We want more compliance. We want the organization to be compliant so that instead of having to worry about being late with us, you can worry and focus on your mission, right? That's what you want to do when you're running a charity. Annual filings are not the thing that excites you. You want to run your organization and operate and focus on your mission. So the best way to be able to do that is just to maintain that compliance. File every year when you need to and get the stuff in. And that way you can be done with it and move on back to the mission, right? So make sure you get your stuff in and make sure you're answering that email or that phone call or that letter. Make sure it's a good contact that we have for all three forms of communication so that it's not missed, right? We prevent non-compliance that way. Incomplete annual registrations, they're often caused by, one of the following things being missing. It's a 990 or the signature page on the 990 is not signed, or if it's e-filed, it's not in the e-file signature page wasn't included. Make sure that's all there. The 990, the full 990, other than Schedule B, we don't need or want your Schedule B, but make sure it's an e-file signature page is there if it's an e-file document. And if it's not, make sure the signed page 1, or if it's a 990 EZ page 4, make sure it's signed. Audits and reviews, if it's required, and your list of board of directors. Again, what a lot of folks will do, they'll send us their 990s. Well, oh, my board's on the 990. Yes, it is, but that's last year's board, right? We need your board of directors today. We want to be able to contact who's there now if there's a question or a problem, not who was there in the prior fiscal year. So make sure that board of directors list is included. So what's happening after an annual registration is submitted? Well, a lot of the same stuff that happens when a new registration is submitted. We're going to look at it and we're going to make sure everything is there that needs to be there. So you're going to get a response from us one way or the other. You're going to get a response from us, and you're going to either get an email from the system saying the registration is good, or you're going to get, if you file online, an email from the system saying, hey, we got this, but go back into the system and fix whatever it is or whatever things they are on the form and resubmit it. And if we got something that was mailed to us by paper, you're going to get an email address with the email address of record asking for whatever is due. So either way, you're going to get a response. And the same thing I emphasized and drove home a couple times over there with new registrations holds true here. If you don't get anything from us, reach out, make sure, right? Never assume, be proactive on that so you can make sure it's there. It's frustrating to everybody, right? If you think you're good and we think you're not, and then we're reaching out saying, hey, you're missing something, you don't want to do, you've already sent it in, right? So if you sent it in and you don't hear anything, reach out to us and check in. Give us a call, shoot us an email. Either way, make sure, because you should have gotten one or two things. You should have gotten something that explains that you're good and when your next due date is, or something that explains that the annual registration is incomplete and what it is that's needed to make it complete. And if you do not receive the email from our office, check with us. Reach out to us and make sure, again, never assume. Notifications from the Secretary of State's office. Generally, they're going to come from the charity registration system. If you file online, one thing I've noticed with online filings, you tend to get a better quality of filing online. As long as those first few questions are answered correctly. And read those questions, pay close attention to what they say, and that information provided. And if that information to those first few questions on an annual registration is provided correctly, the form's going to help do the work, right? It's going to ask for what is needed. If a registration fee of $100 is needed and a 990 is needed, it's going to give you places to attach the 990 and pay the fee. If you owe a financial review or an audit, it's going to ask you for that. It's going to give you a separate place to attach something for that file. So the online filing form can help guide you and ensure you're not missing something, but it can also help guide you and make sure you're not overpaying, right? And again, talking about the online form, pay close attention to the online form. At the top, it gives you the due date. If you think you're due November 15th of 2023 and it says you're due November 15th of 2022, time out, something's wrong, right? That means we don't think you're current in your registration. That means we think you're still missing something from last year. If you're not sure what that is, or you're concerned, you think it might be an error, again, reach out to us, right? Check with us. Pay attention to what that form says. It's there for your benefit to try to help folks catch when they were due or when we think you're due. And the same thing, if it thinks you're due November 15th of last year instead of November 15th of this year, it's going to ask you for a registration, for a late fee, not just a registration fee. And so if that's an error, or you think that's an error, you think you submitted everything, reach out to us and let us know. Sometimes it really is the case. We got a registration fee and documentation, and for some reason the date didn't get updated, and we can fix that before you go paying a late fee. You don't know, right? So the online form can help you catch a lot of stuff and make sure you're only submitting what it is that's due at that time, and not more, but also not less. You're going to get automated messages from our online filing system as well. And you're going to get way more reminders now than you used to get by letter, and it used to be that we'd mail you a letter about 30 days before your renewal date, which is 6 months after your fiscal year ends. And that renewal letter would just say, hey, your due date's coming up. And if you're not done, that's great. You got an automatic extension until, 10 and a half months after your fiscal year ends. Now, you still get that renewal reminder, but you also get another renewal reminder 1 month before your extension date. So you're getting that email before your renewal date, and you're getting that email before your extension expires. And then you're getting an email when your extension expires. And then you're getting an email a month after your extension expires. So these 4 notifications are getting sent to you before we've even assessed a late fee. Right? You get a late fee 60 days after the extension date, 60 days after the final due date, right? So if you're due November 15th, you're getting a late fee 60 days after that date. So their January 14th would be the 60th day. So the system is designed to try to help prevent that even further, right? So it's giving you multiple reminders. So you take advantage of those reminders, read those emails. If you're getting that email, that means we don't have something, or we don't know we have something from you. So if you filed it online, you shouldn't get that email. But if you dropped in something on paper, the system doesn't know we have it until we know we have it and we processed it, right? So if you're still getting those reminders, that's a tell that we haven't processed that annual registration yet. And if it's been a while, reach out, right? Make sure we got it, make sure it's getting done. So now, are we day-to-day on paper applications? Nope, definitely not. They take a little longer to do and get through the system. So it may be that we've gotten it and it's not processed yet, but again, don't wait 2, 3, 4 months. Make sure we got it, make sure it's getting done. So if you don't see these emails coming from the system, check your spam folder. If you still don't see them, let us know. Maybe we have a bad email address of record. Maybe we have a typo. Maybe it was something that we punched in from a paper form and we typed in wrong. So you're not getting it. It could be several things. But you want to make sure you're getting it. If you're not getting these email reminders, let us know. And then otherwise, just the plug for the online system, make sure you get in there and set up your account in One Stop and all that stuff. And that way you can just pop in and do your annual registration when it's time. Get that account set up now. If you go to the charity page on our website, the same place where these town hall links are posted, there's user guides for creating an account. There's a video guide for creating an account. It's a great video, walks you through step by step. If you're like me, you're a visual learner, right? It helps you see that process of how you set up your account and claim your record. There's user guides for filing annual registrations and new registrations. That information's there for you to use. They're pretty good user guides, and they have pictures, right? They have screenshots in the instructions, so you can see where you got to go click in order to follow through that process and successfully file. So the hope of this system is to increase compliance, right? We want you to be able to file easier and quicker. Once you've submitted, it's there because the status says it is. But also, it can help, preemptively with making sure charities file on time. And, again, that's what we want. But ultimately, the organization, right, you need to know when you got to file. And if you're ever unsure, reach out. And if you remember anything from this conversation, from this town hall, check in with us and ask, right? Reach out and ask. If you're not sure, ask. Again, we want you to be compliant. We want you to succeed. But we can want it, but we can't do it, right? So we need your help in that. And if you're ever unsure, just ask. Late fees for incomplete or missing registration materials. The organization is assessed a late fee on the 60th day after its automatic extension. So we talked about this very briefly earlier, but just kind of seeing it again here, written down on the slide. A late fee of $25 is assessed. That late fee goes up $25 a month on the first day of each month thereafter. And that late fee is going to continue to increase at that rate until the organization has submitted all outstanding documentation and fees to become compliant. If you're an organization that didn't file the last couple of years, you have a late fee. You would need to get in any missing annual registrations, any missing annual registration fees, and the late fee in order to become fully compliant. And when that happens, that's when you'll get the notification about being compliant and having that current registration and when your next due date is. So the longer it builds up, the longer the late fee builds up. The more things are due, the greater the late fee is. So important to file on time, but you do get that window, right? 60 days after your extension date until that late fee happens. So if you're due November 15th and you're not going to have it into us until November 25th, you're not getting a late fee, right? Don't panic. There's not a late fee until you're 60 days late. So if you get it in a few days late, hey, at least it's not a late fee. We love it on time or early. But if it comes in a few days late, at least there's not that late fee. And ultimately, I think, every charity, right? Would you rather be paying us a late fee, or every $25 towards a late fee is $25 that you're not able to spend on your mission? So filing on time is key, and it helps prevent those late fees. So again, this is kind of how it breaks out for late fees: $25 a month on the 60th day. First day of each month thereafter, it goes up $25. So some actions we're taking to try to help prevent and resolve registration deficiencies. We talked about the proactive actions we're taking, notifications from the new online filing system. That's probably one of the best things about that system, other than the form trying to kind of help and morph based on what it is that you actually have or in our reporting from the prior fiscal year. Is the notifications to try to help prevent that. Instead of one letter in the mail that we hope you see, you get 4 emails before late fee even hits you, your organization, in hopes that you see it. And if you didn't know, or you didn't remember, or you forgot, or you started and you set it down and walked away and forgot, we've all been there, right? I've been there. I know we've all been there. You get those email notifications to remind you. And if you're getting those notifications, you've done your job and you've submitted it, check with us, make sure we got it, make sure it gets processed or has been processed, or maybe we have it, it's not processed yet, or maybe we have it, but there's something missing and we try to reach out, and maybe we reach out to the wrong place. It's always possible. Or maybe we reached out, but that email is no longer the good email for the organization. So you're also going to get additional notifications from us after the organization is assessed a late fee. It's still going to send you notifications by email. And I mentioned earlier, at some point in time, you're going to get a letter and or phone call from us. But if you're getting a letter from us, it's probably not a good sign, right? That probably means you've gotten a bunch of emails, or the system sent emails to that address, or we think it has, and you're probably pretty late if you're getting something in the mail from us. So SOS also does the following things reactively to help with compliance. We're going to issue you a notification in response to a submission of an annual registration, even an initial registration. Again, you're going to get something from us. If you don't let us know, you're going to get something from us that says we reviewed it and it's complete and you're registered, or your annual registration is complete and here's when you're current until, or hey, we got it and we're missing something. But either way, those notifications are coming in the form of email. For online filings, it's doesn't tend to be that long after you submit the registration online that you're getting a response. For folks that are still dropping paper applications in, try the new online system. But if we get in the paper application, it is going to take generally, we're talking weeks. We're not talking hours or days to get a response to that filing. Notifications are generally coming in the form of email. I think I've probably hit that point more than anybody cares to hear. But respond to phone calls, voicemails, and emails. I know a lot of this sounds like common sense, but it bears repeating. Everybody, we get busy in our day, we get busy in our life. It's easy to forget something. It's easy to miss something. And sometimes we just need that friendly reminder that we need to follow up, or we need to act. And that's what we're hoping to get here with these reminders, is that friendly reminder to get it in before it's due, or get it in before there's a late fee. So there's a public registry. You can search charities that are registered with us on our website, and it's really through the online filing system. And the best way, to be compliant and show compliant on our website, so make sure you're filing on time, look out for their reminders, ensure there's valid contact information. I can't stress looking out for reminders, valid contact information enough. It happens to me on a regular basis. I'll be talking to somebody They'll have a delinquent registration, the non-compliant registration. They'll be behind. They'll have a late fee, and they'll be saying, "Oh yeah, just send it to the email address on a registration form," and I'll read back that email. They'll say, "Oh no, that's not the right email address." All right, let's get the right email address now, right? It happens on the regular, and everybody, nobody thinks it'll happen to them, but one day it will. It happens to all of us at some point in time about something. Make sure you have valid contact information on file with us. Make sure the one you're putting on your registration form is actually an email that you're checking, that the organization, somebody is checking to make sure is being answered and responded to. That's where the stuff is going. Submit all documentation. Again, we have some folks, much more of a problem in the paper filing world, where folks will send us part of their stuff, knowing that it's not all done, but they'll send us part of it instead of just waiting to send us all at one time. And they'll send us part, and then they'll forget to go back and send us the rest. Make sure everything is there. We can't accept the registration until it's there. Folks will reach out to us, say, I really need that. I need that letter. I'm applying for a grant today, and the deadline's today, but I'm not going to have all my stuff until next month. Can you give me a registration letter temporarily? Nope, can't do that. We need all that information, all that documentation to complete that annual registration. So make sure it's all to us. If we're at the deadline for something you need it for, that puts everybody in a tough spot. Maybe if everything's here, we can get it done, right? But if everything's not here, we can't. So all documentation has to be submitted. The same thing with fees. They all have to be in order to be complete. And really, again, I've mentioned it, and I'll mention it one more time, because why not be proactive, follow up. If you're not getting a response to your application, check in with us. Check your spam folder, make sure it's not in there if it's not in your inbox. But if you don't see anything, check in with us and ask. We don't want you to be non-compliant. We want you to stay current. We want you to be compliant. We want you to get your filings done on time, at least before the late fee, right? And we want you, that way, it's over and done with, right? You filed your thing with us, and you don't have to file again until next year. And once you're current, it's easier to stay current. A lot easier to file one annual registration and fee at a time than multiple and have to worry about late fees and stuff, right? So who can I contact for help resolving a compliance issue? Our charity officers are ready and eager to help. We really don't want you to be late. Nobody likes late fees, right? And nobody likes having them assessed. But they get assessed if things aren't late, and that's what's in the law, right? So there's our phone number. There's our email. I'm going to go back to that page, or back to that contact information in a second. A lot of good resources out there for nonprofits, especially nonprofits in Maryland. Community Law Center, Maryland Nonprofits, Maryland Nonprofit Development Center, your local bar association, all have great resources for nonprofits that may need a little help, or some resources, or some assistance, or some information. These are really good places to get that information from, for whatever your problem may be. And I promised we're going to get to questions here in a second. Contact information again, for the Secretary of State's office, dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov. Phone number 410-974-5534. And then you can get to various people from there. But this is our contact information. Make note of it. It's also on our website. You can find this information, but it's right here. Make note of it if you don't know it already. These are the best places to get a reasonably quick answer on a charity question. Emails tend to be answered usually within one, if not one, usually 2 business days at most, with very few exceptions to that. Phone calls, same thing, should be returned within 1-2 business days at most. Very few exceptions to that, or should be very few exceptions to that. We should be filing up in a timely manner. Again, Q&A will follow. Hope this town hall was helpful and informative. The recording from the day's town hall is going to be posted on the Secretary of State's website. Should be up it's not up later this week, it should be up by the very beginning of next week at the latest. So refer to it as often as you like once it's up there. And as I shared earlier, the recording and presentations provided for informational purposes only. These are not intended to give legal advice. And I'll throw it out, same thing in the upcoming Q&A. Not intended to be legal advice, so we can give information only. We plan to hold some more town halls on various topics. Coming up later this fall, we'll actually have we'll send an email invitation very shortly regarding cryptocurrency, and a current FBI agent and a former FBI agent that's involved in cryptocurrency now and in his current employment, talking about things to be aware of, concerned about regarding cryptocurrency. We'll also have our registration through the lens of filing with the Secretary of State's office, the Comptroller, and assessments and taxation in November, on November 6th. And then we'll have our donor education town hall later this month at the end of November, or later next month at the end of November. So thanks for joining us today. And with that,